Are we live? Are we live? All right, we're live.
Finally,
We're finally live.
guys, we were having some technical difficulties, but we are live.
Yes.
And we are happy that you are still here with us. I hope you're still here with us.
Don't go anywhere.
Yes, come in the room.
Come in the room.
Oh, wait a minute. My green looks good, though.
Yeah, I look better. Look at these. I've been working on these. See, Frankenstein got them popping again.
What?
Brought his brother out. Benny biceps. All right, enough.
Wait a minute.
Enough.
I don't even
Willie.
know
It's not about you. It's about us.
It's not about me. Do I look pretty?
Yeah, you look amazing.
Okay. You know, when we go live, I like to try to spruce myself up a little bit.
I don't know if that's true.
And then whenever you see me with the glasses on, that's how you know we're going live, because I'm trying to see the screen and hoping I can see the comments. So,
I've been feeling I worked at the gym this morning.
Oh my Lord. So hello. Welcome everyone to this live stream of Effort with Aikisha and Willie Cologne.
Fuck it. Can't have a show unless I say
it. It seems that way.
Yeah.
So we thank you guys for joining us. Today is going to be just absolutely amazing. And I'm so excited I'm actually excited and nervous at the same time about today.
You shouldn't be.
Why?
Well, because it is a special...
You're saying I shouldn't be excited or I shouldn't be nervous? Like,
no,
what are you
shouldn't be nervous. I think everybody that knows us or knows our story, they will get a chance to know our story soon. They're a fan of ours, so I think this is a room full of love.
They're
grace,
supporters.
and harmony.
I don't like the word fans, but I like.
Did I say fans? I apologize.
Yes, no, I.
It's okay to be a fan.
See, you're so used to that sports world where you guys do actually have fans of the sport and of your position.
But we are a fan of people who necessarily aren't in the sports world. We're fans of people.
That's true. That's true. So, but I think I'm just nervous because we're telling our story.
Yes.
And before we let me back up, y'all. Beep. Welcome again to Effort with Aikisha and Willie Cologne. Okay. And this week's F word is fertility. And it is so fitting with us coming up on Mother's Day.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers. I know we're a couple of days before Mother's Day, but for me, honey, every day is Mother's Day. And I'm hoping that we're going to be celebrating the mother in this home.
Yeah, of course. Like, why wouldn't we celebrate you? The question is, am I prepared for Mother's Day? I think that's what you're hinting at.
Yes. Are you prepared? Have you gotten together with the kids and maybe gotten mommy a gift?
I mean, we've brainstormed. We got
our kids are 3 and 5, so they're going to need a little bit of leadership in this.
But they got to pass, right? They can show up with some construction paper and says, with some crayon to say, "Mommy, I love you. You're the best," and they get the pass. Me.
They can show up like that. Hold on, I'm gonna cut you off here, and I know people get on me for cutting you off. They can show up like that because they don't know what mommy went through to get them here. But who does know is you.
I do know, but I feel like,
You feel like what?
I mean, Mother's Day is not going anywhere. You're going to be a mother forever.
I will.
How hard do you expect me to go for Mother's Day? Like, what's the expectation?
Y'all, what is the expectation? If my mothers who are live in here in the chat, I mean, is it about just being appreciated for the day? Do you want gifts? Do you want them to just say, "I love you"? What are you expecting from your spouse, your children's father, your daddy, children? Like, please come into the chat. Our producer let me know. I want to get some of these comments because sometimes Willie's just like, every day is Mother's Day for you. And
technically is.
It should be.
I tell you I love you. I feed you.
You feed me.
I provide.
Oh,
I mean.
Is that right?
Every day is technically Mother's Day.
Whatever. But y'all, what makes this week absolutely special too for us? Your phone. Can you get your phone? And it's spam. Turn it down. Is our book that we have been working on for a very long time. It goes on pre-order tomorrow.
Yes.
Can you believe it?
I can believe it because I know you've been
Y'all.
working really hard at it.
Yes, and you too. He's an author in this book as well.
Well,
Faith and Fertility
boop,
goes
boop.
on pre-order tomorrow. And this is what I was nervous about. This is what I mean.
So
It's deep.
so just kind of backtrack a little bit. My wife is nervous about this book because we are extremely vulnerable with our stories and what we went through with the birth of our children. And
Or
I have
even getting to the possibility of having children.
yes. And so what's interesting about this book, we have met a lot of mothers, and we have met people who are currently dealing with fertility issues.
Mhm.
And what's interesting about this book as well is not just about Aikisha's plight and her story. It's also about my story and
Yes.
where I was at when we were trying to conceive our children. So it's a deep book. It's a very vulnerable book.
It's very personal. It goes on a real intimate journey with the two of us. And I wanted to make sure that Willie was included because originally when I was saying I wanted to do a book, he was just like, oh yeah, babe, you really, somebody said acts of service and gifts. Yes, Tiff to the any acts of service and gifts. But you were kind of just like pushing me like, okay, yeah, you need to tell your story because it was a story. But then when I thought about it, and I thought about everything that you were going through on my fertility journey. You were at the end of your career. You were still fighting to be on the field. You were still playing. We were not married yet. We just had all of these different traumatic and dramatic things to happen to us. And I dropped this bomb saying, I was ready to have children. We're going to go back because y'all know I start the show, every time we have an F word, I always start with the meaning, the dictionary meaning, or either what AI says it means. So when we're talking about fertility, it says fertility refers to the ability to conceive and produce offspring. To conceive and produce offspring. So that's what we're talking about, your fertility. Ages for women's fertility starts to decline in their early 30s, and men's sperm quality declines after the age of 30. Now, infertility, that's defined as the inability to get pregnant after 1 year of unprotected sex. It can affect people of all genders and have many causes. So, back to this word fertility. And our book, Faith and Fertility. So when we talk about this story, when after this journey, and I kept like going over in my mind, like, I really want to share this with somebody because I never thought for 1 second in my life, I grew up in a household that it was just like, you did not get pregnant. You didn't want to have a teenage pregnancy. You didn't get pregnant out of wedlock. I remember when I was going to college, my grandmother and my mom were both like, you can stay in Atlanta because I was going to Clark Atlanta University. And y'all know Atlanta was hot in the 90s, babies. But I had to keep the grades up and I couldn't get pregnant. So it was just like,
damn, with your fast ass coming home.
Yeah, they didn't want you fast ass coming home with a baby.
Come home, no baby.
Yeah,
especially without a degree.
Yeah, right. And so, and listen, this is not anybody, me bashing anyone who had children out of wedlock. I mean, y'all know my story, or saying that, single parents or teenage mothers. No, that's not what this is. Those were the guidelines and those were the rules in my home. And so that's what I went by. I knew.
And it's the rule in our home.
It's the rule of my home. But, I don't want people to look at this and feel like we're judging because no, when you read this book, I don't know if any of y'all going to be judging, but I'm one of those, I don't care. It's my story. It is what it is. But so I don't want to come across like that. But what I'm saying is in my mind, I did so much to protect myself from having a child before being married and before, as a teenager, that it was like when it was time, it wasn't happening like I thought it was going to happen because I'm one. I mean, my biological mother, there's 6 of us. She comes from she has 6 siblings. All of my sisters, all my biological sisters, they all had children. So I knew that when it was time for me to get ready to have a baby, it was going to be nothing. I would be able to do it. I didn't think about my age. I just felt that whenever I was ready, it was going to happen.
No, I think you said a key word. I think, you know, outside of you dating multiple women before we got married, one of the things that
Outside of me dating multiple
no, I'm saying
women.
outside of me,
Oh
like
yeah,
outside
make
of
sure you
you,
say me,
I
because honey,
apologize. Outside
I
dating my
am
wife,
strictly,
yes,
you
I'm
know.
saying when I was going through my courting stage, that was one of the phobias. Time, like women put themselves on a schedule, right? They want to have the
It's not that women that we put ourselves on a schedule. That is, there is a timeline. There's a fertility clock. I just told you, when you get into your early 30s, that ovarian reserve, it declines. You got to realize, women, let me just educate you real quick, and anybody who
okay,
doesn't know, a woman is born with all of her eggs at birth. Holly is carrying every one of her eggs right now at the age of 3.
right,
When she was inside of me, I had gotten rid of my eggs and I was carrying her eggs and, with me. So when you get to this early 30 period, you got to realize, if you started your cycle, I started my cycle when I was 11 years old. So that means that I started ovulating. I lost one of those eggs every month, besides the little times where I did have birth control, every month from the age of 11 to you and I started trying to conceive when I was 36 years old.
right.
That's a long time.
Well, what I was trying to lean on was that a lot of women put extra pressure on themselves because they do understand the timeline, as you just stated. And so, with that timeline, as far as conceiving, there's also the goal timeline, meaning they want the degrees, they want to be married, and they want the children. And what you realize too is a lot of women, even though they're kind of going through this stage of trying to figure themselves out, they also know in the back of their heads, like, man, the clock is ticking.
Yes.
And this is real. And
Yes.
so I can play in these streets and I could deal with such and so. But at the end of the day, to your point, this reserve each year is dwindling down. From the man standpoint, we can as long as our sperm is upright and rocking,
Y'all can ride
we
out
can
to
go
90.
out to whatever. So we don't
Yeah.
have the same, I guess, anxiousness or fear or panic like women do.
And I had to realize that. And y'all, that's why with this book, Faith and Fertility, when it became apparent to me, and you'll see, I had a loss, and it was a loss of my biological mom. And it was after that moment, I was 36 years old, is when I realized, like, I've always wanted to be a mother since I was 5 years old. Like I was one of those. I would put the pillowcase over my head to make the veil, and then after I got married, I was balling that pillowcase up and putting it up under my shirt.
This is
Because
also
it
a
was,
Southern thing too.
I mean,
You
it
guys
could be
talk
whatever,
about,
but we do.
yeah.
Yes, we do. I mean, a lot of people I know married their high school sweetheart. Like they've been in their relationship since they were teenagers. And after 25 down south, it's kind of like you're old maid if you're not married and you don't have children. So I got past that point because I was living my best life. I lived my best life in my 20s. I traveled. I was living in Atlanta. I went from Atlanta, I lived in LA, and then, came back to Atlanta. And so I wasn't thinking about it then. But when I got into my early 30s, we talked about this when we talked about our relationship and when we got together. I knew I was changing the trajectory of my life, knowing that I wanted to always be a mom. I wanted to be a wife, and I wanted to be a mother. But what I had to realize, and that's what we pour out into this book, that my urgency, I couldn't make it yours.
Yes.
Because you were younger than I am. I mean, you were younger than I am. So when I was 36, you had just turned 30, because I'm 5.5 years older than you. You were still on the field. You're trying to fight. I mean, you were not thinking. Yeah, you had already said that you didn't even know if you wanted to be married. Y'all, when you get into this book, it's very personal and it's intimate. And that's why when I talk about being nervous at first, if you look, I originally put up that the book was going to be coming out in March, and we've been working on this book over a year. Well, I stopped everything because when I began to read these pages, because mind you, I was writing my stuff with our someone who was helping us, and he was doing his. And so when I began to read his stuff and then he was reading mine, a lot of the things that we know now, we found out when we were writing this book.
Sure. Yeah.
So when I started reading this stuff, I'm like, oh my God, do I want people to know that? Well, what are people going to think about this? Or what are they going to say? Oh, my family's going to read this. And so I began to say, oh no, I don't know if I want to do this. But that's when God stepped in. No, he did. He stepped in and you did too. You were just like, this is our story.
Yeah.
And we cannot allow anyone to control that narrative. And we're going to tell our story
Well,
because
you
it's going
can't
to
let.
help.
Well, we weren't going to allow fear or
Yeah.
judgment to control our story because we, one of the things that I'm extremely proud about in reference to our relationship is that when things got hot, when we both became extremely physically, spiritually, and emotionally fatigued, we gave it all to him. And we were exasperated from the standpoint where we didn't our fear didn't matter because we were everything that we had feared happened. It was happening.
Oh, God, it was
It was
happening.
happening on a consistent basis, right? From me retiring, from you not being able to get
Or
pregnant,
getting hurt.
or
Remember,
getting hurt,
you got before,
getting hurt
yes.
from things dealing with our own families, like everything that our biggest fears were coming true. And so, with that said, when we decided to write this book, I was like, there's no space for fear because we persevered through all that because of God and our faith in Him. So we got to
And
tell the story.
yeah. And it wasn't even of me not being able to get pregnant. It was losing every pregnancy that I conceived and not understanding what was happening to me, having to learn about this F word, fertility and infertility, and just learning my body. And, I mean, you think it's so just simple science to be like, okay, you have your cycle, that's day 1, and then you ovulate on day 14, and then, you want that egg to catch a sperm, and then you find out you're pregnant 2 weeks later by day 28 or 29, like I got so clinical and I mean, research. I learned so much. Like sometimes, y'all, I'm telling you, honey, if one thing I can do is help you get pregnant. Now, I don't know if I can help you keep it, but I know down to a science because I was so just engulfed and just overwhelmed and stressed and insecure.
And I'll
Y'all.
say this too. One of the things while we are kind of going through this journey while I was playing, um, while we were serious, like we were both, our intentions were to get you pregnant. I remember you telling me, like, Willie, part of this is your battle too. You're going to have to stop the drinking and smoking and doing all this stuff. You have to clean your diet up because, I guess, like you said, you were in the weeds, you were reading everything. And a lot of the reports from the male standpoint was if you have a dirty diet, meaning if you're drinking and smoking and doing God knows what, that's going to continue to decrease your chances of having a kid or get you pregnant. And I didn't adhere to it because I'm like, I know my daddy drank and smoked.
Yeah.
When he had me and my brothers, right? I know such and such damn sure did XYZ and they have multiple kids. So I was like, it taps into the ego. What makes me different that I have to change my lifestyle in order to have a child?
Yeah.
So I didn't realize, and now there's reports coming out and there's all type of studies. And if you follow social media and you're into finding ways on how to get your wife pregnant, is that the man has to do a lot on his end too, as far as a clean diet. You have to fast, clean your sperm, and cleaning your sperm isn't a matter of drinking some juice and done. It's a matter of going through at least 3 weeks of a healthy, clean diet, getting rid of the sugar, getting rid of the alcohol, stop the weed smoking, and so you can, and also flushing out fresh sperm. And so there's a lot. There's, as much to my point is the process you have to go through. There's a man process to it too. And I ignored that.
Yeah. And that goes back when you talk about when I was talking about the insecurity, because then it begins to play in my head. I am older than he is. Everybody around him has children. All of my friends had children. And I'm having to mind you, they had kids without having to do all that we were doing.
Yeah.
And even like with, his ex-girlfriends, everybody was popping up pregnant. So I've never, ever been insecure in my life. And I mean, I had acne. Y'all know my story. I went from, kind of like a rags to riches story, from poor to having. I mean, all of these things, but I never, ever felt insecure until I'm looking at the man that is possibly going to have to pay and change his entire lifestyle in order for me to give him a baby. And that's what is poured out into this book. And so that's, again, when I think about this journey, and this became therapy for the two of us. Like, we're going to read excerpts. I'm going to read, a passage or whatever from one of my chapters, and he's going to read something from his. But it became therapy for us because we were able to pour everything we felt, what we were going through, things that I couldn't actually say to you and help you to understand, or I know that you didn't understand physically or emotionally what I was going through. And even with you, when I read, guys, I'm gonna I'm gonna start and let Willie start, but I went to him and I told him, because I realized I was 36 years old. I wanted to have children. No, we weren't married yet. I knew I was jumping out on a limb, but I felt like he was my husband. But then the fear of me not being able to have children at all took over what was in the back of my mind, my grandmother not being here, because I damn sure would not have told you about having kids if my grandmother was alive.
Is that
But
right?
no, I don't think
If your grandfolks was here, you wouldn't have asked me.
no,
And why? Can I ask why?
because I just, out of respect for her, because I knew how she felt about having children out of wedlock.
You don't think
I
she would
knew
have
what
been?
she had been teaching me. I knew my journey and my story.
Sure.
I always said that I didn't want, even though I am grateful and I love my grandparents and grandson, as we call her, my mother, under God.
Mm-hmm.
But I just did not want my children to be having to be adopted by an aunt or having to be taken care of by somebody else or living with their grandparents. I didn't want that for my children. So I wanted to be in a 2-parent home. I wanted marriage and what I saw with my grandparents, or I saw with some of my friends' parents. I wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the struggles or the stories or whatever they had gone through, but what I saw was a solid foundation and a solid family that, even though I loved my family and it was blended and we were, it wasn't the traditional or whatever you want to call traditional, but I wanted different for my own. So, it's a room of adults up in here. Of course, I had been doing things for me to have a kid. I had been grown, but
You was laying down.
whatever. I always knew that that's not what I wanted. So there was never a person that I was with that I wanted to have children with until I got with you.
Mm.
So that's the reason I told you, because one, like my age, it was dwindling down. I had just had one of the most traumatic experiences of my life, losing my biological mom.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to have children. I wanted them with you. But what I didn't want is, if that was not what you wanted, I was 36 years old, so I didn't have 3, 4, 5 years to be wasting with you. I needed to get whoever God had for me, because I had been praying to God for that person, and you and I were together. So I felt you were that person. But if, like you said, you talk about it in the book, and we're going to read a passage from one of your chapters on your reasons for not wanting to have children.
Yeah.
Like what had happened to you as a child. So we're going to get into that right now, because y'all know, I know time is dwindling. I know some of you guys at work. I thank you so much for being in here. So we're going to read a part of Willie's chapter now. If you have any questions and you're putting them in the chat, we're also going to give you the opportunity to come up on the live and talk to us and ask your question in person. So if you're not shy and you want to talk to Willie and me, we're going to have our producer to bring you up and you can ask the question in person. So we're going to get into one of Willie's.
Kind of preface the scene?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. We're going to get into one of Willie's chapters. And this is basically, this was after I had asked him, told him that I wanted to have children and I wanted him to be the father of my children. And he gives me this like, okay, but he sort of plays in his mind. He didn't want to hurt my feelings. He felt like I was the one. He knew that he wanted to have children and wanted to have them with me, but he sort of has a flashback of how he got to the point, like, look, I don't have to be married. I don't have to, I can or cannot have kids. So this is just, we'll go from there. But this is just one of his chapters in the book.
Bronx, New York, 1989. All of my big sister Joy's stuff was packed up for her to go to college. She was floating around the apartment like she won the lottery. I'm not going to lie, as much as she got on my nerves, I was really happy to see her so excited. My 6-year-old brain didn't know exactly what college was, but it had to be pretty dope for my normally too cool for school, sister to be excited about. I checked her room one more time for anything she could have left behind. Satisfied she didn't, I closed her door and headed out to my family. While bounding down the stairs, we were driving upstate. whatever that meant, but it sounded like fun. So I was eager to get the show on the road. Something felt off as soon as my foot hit the final step. My dad was frozen, box still in hand. My sister was screaming, "Ma!" I looked in her line of sight toward my mother. She looked like herself, but kind of like her face was rearranged in a weird way. Her mouth drooped where it should have been her normal smile. Her arms were limp like a rag doll, and her eyes rolled in the back of her head. She looked like something out of one of those scary movies I sneakily watched at my buddy's house, but only this was real. Hot tears stung the back of my eyes when I started to think, Mommy's in pain. My dad raced over to the other side of the car and caught my mom before she dropped to the ground. Call 911, Joy. We didn't end up driving upstate. Instead, the Cologne family spent the rest of that day in the hospital as my mom fought for her life. I knew that's what she was doing back there. Mom was a fighter. After all, being where she was from, you had to be. Growing up a black girl in the Bronx in the 70s, you had to learn how to look out for yourself and quickly. When she met Dad, this beautiful young man from Santurce, Puerto Rico, with a strong accent and an even stronger machismo, she finally felt like someone else could take on the responsibility of looking out for her and my older sister Joy. They fell in love hard and fast, got married, and had me sometime after. 15 months later, my brother Antonio was born. Things were really good for a while, and then this weird stuff started happening to mommy's body. Ever since that day, my little brain quickly started to comprehend the concept of cruelty, excuse me. How is it possible that the strongest, best person in the world was put inside of a body that was portraying her like this? And she still had to keep going, try and take care of her kids like nothing ever happened. I don't ever want to be responsible for someone else like that.
Mm.
These things ran through my young mind on a loop even after mommy was discharged. I didn't want to take my eyes off her. How did I know that her face wasn't going to go all funny again? Who's going to call for help if she can't raise her arms above her head anymore? Yeah, I wasn't going to the first grade anymore. The only problem with that declaration was that I was just 6 and I didn't run anything in my life. So, yeah, I didn't like school. Mommy was more important than learning how to write my name in cursive or what happens when Johnny takes away 3 of his apples. Fuck school and fuck kids. So that's in chapter
Wow.
in the book, y'all.
So that was one of your reasons
Yeah.
for, like, you never had in your mind. We used to talk about how when I was younger, I thought about getting married and I thought about having children and, being a wife and living in a house with a dog and some kids. And you said that never crossed your mind.
Well, I just knew the impact it had on me and my brother. I realized once my mother was put in the hospital, how it tilted our home. I mean, my aunt Joan, God rest her soul, her twin, moved out of her apartment and started living with us to kind of pick up the slack because my dad had to go to work. And my dad, being the only man in the house that was bringing in income, I mean, he worked relentlessly to kind of keep us afloat. And then I remember just me and I was very distracted at school. I can remember being very distracted at school because I kept worrying about, if I was going to get that call that Ma didn't make it out of the hospital. Because for a long time, it was touch and go. I mean, I remember the doctor being very honest and vivid about like, hey, your mom got one foot in the grave. This is a day by day situation.
Mm.
And then on top of that, my sister still went on to school. She was technically my second mother. So if, in baseball terms or in football terms, we were down 2, we're down 2 men,
Yeah.
Mom was gone. Joy was off to school and all we had was Auntie Joan. On top of that, she had her own life. And
Yeah.
so the house was very much shifted. And then me and my brother, like anytime any family deals with something that's significant, the kids are kind of just, they're putting the earmuffs are put on them, but they don't have blinders on them.
Right.
They wouldn't have the conversations around us, but we could see everybody kind of anxious and nervous about what's going on in the home. And it was a lot. It was a lot for me. And I kind of grew this callous, like, man, I never, I don't want my kids or anybody's kids to kind of be put in a situation we were to possibly, realize that your mother could be gone. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right. Wow. I know when I read that and I had read it before, but then when I was reading it this week, trying to figure out which passages that we were going to read, and we're coming up on Mother's Day, I was just like, wow. And, you know, um, you, our experiences are what sort of
They shape you
direct us. They shape us,
for
yes.
sure.
And I didn't know that then when you gave me the answer. I told him, I was like, I want to have children, and I want to have children with you. You guys, I mean, of course, you'll read how that went down. And he was just kind of like, okay. And so now knowing, now knowing all of this, I mean, of
Yeah.
course, we talked about later, but knowing that, I wouldn't have felt or responded the way that I did, or,
Well, part of
felt like it had something to do with me. Cause you also go in and talk about your father's infidelity in here.
yes,
And
yeah.
that was another reason that you didn't want to get married and you didn't want to have children. That's in another chapter.
Well, because
So,
unlike you, I didn't have examples of what a perfect marriage should look like. Right, every marriage that I think or assumed was perfect was on TV. A lot of my, like two of my best friends, their folks were split up.
mhm,
And so I never had anything around me. It was like, oh, that's where I should go. This is how a man runs a home. This is what a man does with a wife. I didn't have that. So it seemed like something of a fairy tale because my dad, as we'll go into it, those who read the book, my dad was there, but he wasn't there.
right.
And there was a big difference. So I just didn't have, like you talked about, you had your grandmother and grandfather. My grandfolks, they
Yeah, your
weren't there.
grandmother
We're
passed
gone.
before you were born. Yeah. And you didn't have a relationship with your dad's mom because your dad's mom didn't like your mom.
Correct.
And yeah. So, y'all, like I said, this book, we give you an intimate look into our lives and our journey, which led up to the beautiful children that we have today and that we're so grateful for. Anybody have any questions before I go into my passage? Because I'm going to talk a little bit more about on my side with after I began to conceive and I was going through the miscarriages. And I'm going to just talk about that because that was something that I was going through that it was hard for me to not only just deal with, but explain. And it seemed like no one around me understood. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But do we have anyone who wants to come up? If you do, our producer is dropping the link in the chat.
Come on up.
We would love, and if you have any question, whether it's to Willie about the chapter that he just read, if it's about our book, if it's about fertility, I mean, I'm not an expert, but I could try to help you to the best of my knowledge. I did let my doctor know, who one of my doctors, and so I don't know if she's in the chat, but yes, if there's anyone in there, Britt, can you tell me if there's anyone who has a question or would like to come up before I go into my chapter?
Uh,
Uh, okay. I'm trying to make sure people are saying that I hope that they can see us. It says that we're live because some people were saying that it was removed, that our live stream was removed. Do we have people? We do have people in the chat, or we do have people in the room.
yeah.
Okay. I am sorry. So maybe I have to send it out again. All right, guys. So I'm going to go into one of my chapters and one of my chapters in the book and read a little bit of that for you guys. And this chapter is called Pieces of Me. Before each chapter in the book, there is a Bible verse. So, like I said, this is faith and fertility. I know he didn't read his, but this particular chapter, Pieces of Me, it starts with, I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. That is 1 Samuel, 1st chapter, 15th and 16th verse. Grief doesn't come all at once. It sneaks up on you in quiet moments. When you see an empty crib in a catalog, when someone asks you when you're having kids, when you hear laughter that should have been yours. And sometimes hope isn't enough. It is not enough to keep you moving forward. Not to mention the physical trauma that your body goes through after a miscarriage. Yeah, it hurts. Not just my heart, though God knows that was breaking too, but my body. Every part of me was in pain. People don't talk about that part enough. They say miscarriage and it sounds so clinical, so clean, but it's not. You sit there basically waiting for the worst period you've ever had, waiting for the cramps to start. And they do. And they don't let up. It's cramping on top of cramping. And no matter how deep you breathe or how still you stay, there's nothing you can do to stop it. And then the bleeding starts. I remember getting up and going to the hospital. And each time I went to the bathroom, it was the same. Just clots of blood, pieces of me falling out. Every time I sat down to pee, I'd brace myself, afraid of what I'd see, what I'd lose, what was already gone. When you're trying not to miscarry, everything becomes terrifying. Going to the bathroom even. I used to be scared to go, scared to do number 2, just like to go. I was terrified I'd push too hard and that would be it. That I'd somehow do something that would make it all fall apart. Because when you're in it, when you're miscarrying, it feels like your body turns against you. Peeing, pooping, it's all the same as being on your period when you're having a heavy cycle. Except now, every time you go, you wonder if you're flushing away another piece of the life you were holding on to. And it hurts. Even with the little pills they give you for the pain, nothing touches it. That deep gnawing ache in your stomach, the cramping in your uterus, the contracting that comes in waves over and over again. It's like your body is trying to give birth to grief, and you can't describe it to anyone. I couldn't describe it to Willie. I couldn't even find the words to explain it to myself. I just sat with it, breathing through it, feeling like my body was falling apart. And it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is, yeah.
Yeah. So I think everybody, thank you once again for supporting Aisha and I. And this book
And thank you for
is
those who are watching. I know you guys are at work, and this is a thing where you had to take time to come in and support us. But
right. So I appreciate all of it. I think for a lot of people who know somebody who's dealing with fertility issues, or you yourself are dealing with fertility issues, this book lets you know that you're not walking a path that nobody
Not
else
alone.
hasn't walked. And everybody's story is unique and different. And we obviously went through a hard road, but we know there's people who have gone through harder roads. And one of
Yeah.
the things that we talked about, I don't know, I'm pretty sure we talked about in the book, is when Keisha and I were going to these IVF clinics, we were meeting people who were
From all walks of life.
all walks of life and who were extremely well off, and from all different races. I mean, from Chinese, Japanese, Russian, African, and from a man standpoint, we, when you go through the process, it's taxing on us, but it's nothing compared to what the women have to go through. I mean, for us, it's more, we got to get our sperm out. There's a time, there's a process to it. But after all that's done from the man standpoint, and they would take Aikisha away, I was sitting in those lobbies or in those waiting rooms, man, and you would see couples who had been there for years.
And you talk about some of the couples who were well off. There were couples who were not as well off, who had gone through, the insurance wasn't paying for it anymore. They were going through their savings. They were doing everything. And I think about like all the money we spent, and I ended up having both of my children natural conception. But now the money you spend, I mean, you spending this money to have a baby, you got to have money left to take care of them. And so my heart, and we talk about this in the book, like people that we have friends that we're friends with now from people that we met here, because we were all just trying to support each other and not happy, but just getting a little comfort in knowing that you are not alone, because that's how you feel. I always felt like no one understood, because all of my best friends all had children. Everybody, so when I'm telling them, I'm trying to explain to them a FSH or AMH level, or talk about my hormones and all of these things that were going on, a lot of times they didn't understand that, and they would try to support the best they could, but they didn't really know how to support, because one day I wanted you to ask me how I was feeling after the miscarriage, and then the next day I didn't want to hear anything about it. So it was it was hard on we weren't married at first, and then when we get married we still continue to have miscarriages. So it was hard on our relationship, it was hard on my friendships, it was hard on my body and my mind, physically and mentally. I had to get into therapy, because to go into have a pregnancy after pregnancy after pregnancy, and loss after loss after loss, and not understanding, what am I doing wrong? Why is my body failing me? What have we done? I mean, it gone to the point when we were fasting, I was just like talking about, well, maybe you should have done this. And we started to kind of fight. I'm like, God, forgive us for our sins. Forgive my parents for their sins.
That's another interesting point. We started thinking about all the things we maybe have done to kind of pissed off God.
Yes.
So maybe this is why we're here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my producer said that they had someone that wanted to come up. I'm not sure if it was a question, a live or a question. I do see a question here. Has doing the podcast together brought you closer? That's VS Icon. Yes and no, because sometimes we do it together and we're close, and then we get off and be arguing about something. But no, I enjoyed doing the podcast with you. How do you feel about doing it with me? I mean, it is my podcast. I just invited you on to be a talent, so really, you should be honored.
I don't think it has brought us closer. I think it's just allowed us to kind of vent and open up about what we go through and how we see things from different perspectives, even though we are joined as one because of the covenant of marriage. But I don't know if it brought us closer. I think it continues to allow us to be more vulnerable and have some
communicate,
and also have, somewhere where we can reflect our love and our purpose.
Yeah. And going back to, because people ask me all the time, like, the F it and the whole F thing. It was like when I started thinking about a name, and I went over this in maybe our first podcast, but everything that was important to me and us and life, it seemed like they all started with the letter F. So that was family. It was finance. It was faith. It was food for me. It was football. It was just all of these things. So that it was easier for me and fertility, as we were talking about fertility today. It seemed like everything that was important to our family started with the letter F. So doing that and being able to discuss these topics together and get his point of view and he get my point of view. And then, we go in and we see your comments and your questions, and we'll come back and discuss that, because sometimes we'll get questions and I'm like, wow, okay. And so I think it's helped us definitely with communicating and taking this time to be able to sit. We do it while our children in school. So that's why it's in the middle of the day, y'all. And we're able to hear each other and, listen, hear, and speak.
Yeah, I think for all the couple podcasts out there, what do we got? Who's this?
This is Love Sick 2. Hey, y'all, this is Kelia. How did you move past the fear of marriage and parenting? Is this my Kelia? Is this Kelia, my friend?
Nobody knows.
Yeah. So you said, how did you move past the fear of marriage and parenting? Well, there's a chapter in the book where Willie, it was after one of my, you said you realized coming down that you knew that I was the one, even though you still were coming out of those streets after my mom passed. But y'all, we get deep. We get deep up in this book. But you also said, it was after one of my miscarriages is in a chapter in here, is when you said, watching me maybe have been the chapter I just read, the grief and everything that I was going through and how you felt, how you were grieving. And you knew that at that moment that you wanted this baby as much as that particular baby, or whenever it was, as much as I did. And you knew you wanted to be a father, and you knew you wanted to do this this thing. So,
well, yeah, I think it goes down to what we kind of talked about, at least having a vision and seeing it. I never saw myself as a husband. I never saw myself as being in a serious, like that type of serious relationship. A father, I knew I always wanted to be, but I always kind of wanted to be like every other man in my family have it, be somebody's baby daddy. And so, like I said, a lot of what we are now, I just didn't envision. Being honest, I was making money, I was balling, I was home, I had girls, I had you, I had my family. I was like, what else do I need? Like, this is it. So I didn't necessarily believe in the structure of marriage. What turned that around honest to God, was God.
Yeah. Your
When
faith.
you brought faith to me and we started to really dive into the Bible, when we really started to pray, and I started bringing my fears and my guilt and everything to the table and kind of unwrapping that, and
And your childhood, your trauma from whatever.
yep,
Yeah.
and all that, and then honestly being around your family, talking to grandson and her kind of laying down what your family legacy is and how much has built you guys up. I was like, wow, that's dope. You know what I mean? Compared to what your great grandfather had to go through to get his kids, and what on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that, and I was like, okay. And then, I was never afraid of being a parent. I was just more afraid of being a traditional parent.
Mm-hmm.
I had no problems with raising kids. I was like, yeah, I got money. I'll take care of a kid. But
But
now,
see, that's the difference. And that's what
yeah,
we're learning now. It's not about money. It's
yeah,
not, we are being very intentional about being present in our children's lives.
yes. And I realized that too. Like, I, and I have a more disdain for people who are part-time dads, or who just feel like because they make enough, that can cover all bases. I can't tell you how many times I'm in a car before, and it will go quiet in the car, and he'll be like, "Dad, I love you," and I'm like, "Oh."
Dad, are you okay? He always says that.
It'll just hit me because my mind, I'm like, I gotta get to the goddamn grocery store. Keisha picked me off this. We got to do this. We got to do this, and it'll go quiet in the car. And what the I love you is not just saying he loves you, is because he feels safe. There's a security there, and I can't provide that if I'm not a 24/7, 365-day a week dad.
Right.
And so that's why I love being a dad. I do. I think about it
Do you
every
love
day.
being a husband?
Yes, even though
Okay.
you piss me off.
All right. I know we have another question. My producer was texting me because I wasn't listening.
Oh yeah, tell
Oh,
her.
yes. So Tier Walker, what do you? I'm sorry. Listen, I got my
I
glasses
got my
on.
glasses. I'll do it for you,
Yeah.
babe. You got backup. It says, "What do you recommend for someone with
Prolactin?
prolactin levels 100 plus without being pregnant or breastfeeding?" I think this is for you. I don't know what that is.
So of course, you've had a baby. Have you? You got to see a doctor, girl. Now I'm not a doctor, but why are your levels? We need to figure out why your levels are so high if you're not pregnant and you're not breastfeeding. Oh wow, I can't answer that question. I am sorry, Tier Walker. I claim to be a doctor, but yeah, I don't know if there's anyone in the chat. And I know I have a lot of professional friends. I have MDs. I have hopefully my mom somewhere in the chat. She should be watching. She's a medical doctor. Somebody go in there and answer that, and then give us the answer. Give us the answer. I'm sorry, Tier Walker. I don't know. Wow,
Right.
you have people who are pregnant who levels aren't even that high.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, Britt, do we have any other questions in there? Do we have anyone who wants to come up? Okay, so guys, we are going to be getting out of here pretty soon, but we want to hold this up for you and let you know that our book will be going on pre-sale tomorrow. It is Faith and Fertility with I forgot her names.
with
No, I'm thinking about the name of the show.
with me, and who's this guy?
Yeah. No, Faith and Fertility by Willie and Aikisha Cologne. You can go on the website. Our website, well, my website is www.aikishahollycologne.com. That is AIKISHAHOLLYCOLON.com. She's going to put it on the screen for you. Tomorrow, it will go on pre-order. And once we're finishing up, we're making a few changes. We're doing some things, and you will be getting the book pretty soon. And then it'll go on, and it'll hit all of the things, the Amazons, and all of the places that you'll be able to pick the book up. But I would love to hear some feedback, and let us know what you thought about today's live stream, what you thought about the excerpts that we read out of the book. And we are just so excited to share, like we said, this very intimate, personal journey. And we call it our love story. And it just shows when you surrender, and truly give it to him. And I want to say this too, because I just remember all of the, I talked about the miscarriages, and, I had a total of 8. And just having this moment of thinking like God is saying, no, no, no. And I had to realize that no was saying, he was saying not now, but he wasn't saying never.
No.
And it was just a lesson in life for me that, we want everything when we want it. We want it right now. We want it quick. And during that time, so many, we thought so many horrible things were happening. There were so many amazing things, us growing closer together with each other, growing stronger in our faith, being able to depend only on the two of us. I mean, we had people who were in our lives that would, we gained friends and lost friends. There were so many things that happened to us during this period that, now when I look back on it, I'm grateful for. And I don't think I would prefer for my story to be any other way than what it is.
Definitely learned a lot. Like you've said repeatedly on this show, you brought God to me, and God in return brought us our legacy. So this is
Yes.
how God works.
Yes, it is. Do we have any more questions before we get out of here? And I'm going to get Britt to put that website up right now. Britt, if you say that we don't have any more questions in there, then we are going to wrap it up. And that is going to be it for this week's F It with Aikisha and Willie Cologne.
Peace, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.